Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, is it fair to say that if Democrat governors would let people go back to work in their states, we'd probably have less unemployment?
I believe there's no question that the reason we have unemployment is that certain states are not opening up and that there are issues. Obviously, some of that has to be balanced with the medical issues appropriately, but yes, we would expect unemployment to drop significantly between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, and it's largely Democrat states. I mean, Democrats keep their states locked down, and then they complain about unemployment. Here's a novel idea. Let people go back to work, and I bet you'll get a lot less of it. You'll get stronger economic growth that will build on what we have seen in the last 3 months. How many jobs have been added to the economy in the last 3 months, Mr. Secretary?
In an extraordinary amount. I think, as you commented earlier, close to 10 million new jobs.
And 10 million jobs in the last 3 months we're adding back. So this idea that there's not a V and there is a V-shaped recovery, it's happening. It would happen a lot sooner if you didn't have Democrat governors keeping people from going back to work. Mr. Secretary, how many times have you testified in front of Congress?
More times than I can count.
Numerous times, right?
Yes.
I think you said 5 times earlier. And you're willing to come and talk about everything you've done and the administration has done, because what you have put in place, the programs you have recommended, the programs that the Congress approved, they've worked. How many loans again in the PPP program?
The PPP program, as you know, kind of has 5.2 million loans that have supported an extraordinary number of jobs for small business.
Yeah, I think the number is over 50 million jobs, 51 million jobs through the PPP program. 85% of small businesses receive support. And as you just said a few minutes ago, this had strong bipartisan support. This thing worked. You're not afraid to come and testify any and every time. I mean, not that you always want to be testifying in front of Congress. I understand that. But you're willing to come testify because the programs that were put in place that the White House and the Trump administration and you supported have actually made a huge difference for this economy and are paying off now. If we didn't have this PPP program, would we be adding the 9 million jobs that you just saw in the last 3 months?
No, there are over 50% of the private jobs are to small businesses. And let me comment, we have over $130 billion left in PPP, which I believe if Congress was willing to take up a standalone action to repurpose this money for additional funds, I believe this would pass with overwhelming support in the House and the Senate, and I would encourage the House to move forward with that.
Well, that's a great point, Mr. Secretary. Would you say that's the most important thing? If we were going to come together, forget all the other stuff the Democrats want to put in this bill, all the left-wing baloney they want to add, and we just focused on helping small business owners, helping families, focusing on the PPP program, is that the most important thing we should focus on if, in fact, there's going to be another piece of legislation?
I would say kids and jobs are the most important thing, and as it relates to jobs, the area that has overwhelming bipartisan support that I believe would be the easiest to pass on a standalone basis would be the PPP.
Yeah, I would love if we just focus on that. And frankly, that's what you guys are trying to do. That's what you've been focused on in the negotiations with Speaker Pelosi. Unfortunately, she wants to add, and the Democrats want to add all kinds of other things. And frankly, they want to bail out the states. The same states, by the way, who are most clamoring for the bailout are the very states that won't let their folks go back to work, that are adding to that unemployment number that Mr. Clyburn, the chairman, talked about just a few minutes ago. I think we're well past the time where we should be focused on one thing only, and that is letting people go back to work, getting this amazing economy we had just a few months ago, getting it back on track, the great American comeback, making that happen. And if we're going to do any legislation, let's focus just on the PPP program, which we know was so effective, so helpful to so many Americans. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.